Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the heat-soaked, blood-slick world of ancient Rome, not as a famous gladiator, but as someone much, much lower on the pyramid. You're not here to fight. You're here to serve. And no, not in a poetic serving the glory of Rome kind of way. I mean actual serving. Like scrubbing sweat off wooden floors and spoon-feeding a man who can crush your skull with one forearm. You're a gladiator's servant. And to be honest, you're definitely not making it to the weekend dot, so breathe in. Smell that? Yeah. It's not lavender dot, it's the stench of 50 men who haven't bathed since Saturnalia, 3 dead goats, and something suspiciously like singed hair. The moment you're shoved through the heavy wooden gate of the ludus, it hits you like a brick wall in August dot. You stumble a little. The sand underfoot is loose and sticky. Someone shouts for you to move, but the voice is swallowed in the cacophony. Grunts, laughter, fists smacking flesh, it's chaos. Glorious, terrifying chaos. You're not in a palace. You're in a sweatbox, filled with human weapons. A thick-armed man, chest glistening, jogs past and splashes you with something that you hope is just water. It isn't. Welcome to your new job. Your name doesn't matter here. No one asks it. From this moment on, you're just boy, rat, or if they're feeling generous, feet, because that's the part of you they see most, groveling on the floor. With a bucket and rag, the lanista, the man who owns the gladiators, barely looks at you. He snaps his fingers once, and a veteran servant jerks his head. You follow. What else can you do? Your first quarters are a corner. No bed, no blanket. Just a dent in the wall and a piece of wood that sort of looks like it once dreamed of being. A stool. You get to sleep next to the gear room, which sounds cool until you realize gear includes the bloodied tools used to remove arrows from thighs. And a crate of rotting apples dot your guide. An older servant named Varro tells you one rule: don't speak unless spoken to. You nod. He adds another: don't touch the armor unless you want to be flayed like fish. Then he smiles and walks away, leaving you very much aware that there are no exits dot as you try to orient yourself. You realize something weird. You recognize one of the gladiators. He's huge, scarred, with a nose that's been broken and reborn several times. You once saw him in a parade as a child, praised by a senator, cheered by a crowd, and now he's across the yard, relieving himself directly onto a pile of broken helmets. Reality. It hits different when it's warm and smells like iron. A horn sounds from the main yard, and suddenly everyone moves. Not in panic, but with purpose. Training. It's time. You're told to follow a man named Felix, who's already irritated that you breathe too loudly. He thrusts a bucket into your arms, warm, wet, and questionable in content. For the sand, he says. You'll see. You do that apparently. Your job is to sprinkle water to keep the dust down. Glamorous, but even more glamorous, doing it. While 50 sweaty men slam into each other with wooden weapons, and you're expected not to get in the way. You shuffle, sprinkle, shuffle, duck. At one point, a wooden sword flies through the air and lands 3 inches from your face. Felix laughs. She likes you, he says. You don't ask who she is. The sun climbs higher. Your arms ache. Your bucket feels heavier by the minute. And you start to notice things. The way the sand turns pink in places. The way no one flinches when someone vomits mid-fight. The way a boy not much older than you is limping away with his tunic soaked in red. No one rushing to help. You realize quickly, this place doesn't stop for pain dot by late afternoon. You're allowed a break. Break means sitting in a corner and gnawing on barley bread, so stale it could be used as a weapon. A guard passes by and tosses you a single fig. You almost cry. That night, you're told to clean the helmets. No instructions, just a pile of metal and a brush made of horsehair. You scrub, flake off bits of dried blood, and wonder who it belonged to. Somewhere nearby, someone starts humming. A low, eerie tune. You pause. The other servants are already asleep, curled like dogs under stairwells. You don't sleep. Too loud. Too bright. Too much. Instead, you sit, knees to chest, listening to the snore of a man who's likely killed with his pinky, and think, you haven't even lasted a day yet, and tomorrow, you're told, is bath day. For them, not you. Sweet dreams. At dawn, someone kicks your foot. Not gently. Not metaphorically. A real, dirty-heeled, sand-caked kick. You jolt upright, heart racing, mouth dry as old parchment. Above you stands a woman named Tulla, one of the senior servants, with arms like braided rope and a voice like a crow with a hangover. Up. It's metal and muscle day. You don't know what that means yet. You will. You scramble to your feet, neck stiff, back sore from sleeping curled up like a dropped scroll. You rub your eyes and blink at the dim corridor that smells of oil and old onions. Somewhere water drips. You already regret waking up. Tulla hands you a bundle. Training oil, blade rags, salt mix. And don't spill that one, she adds, pointing to a clay jar tied shut with twine. That's piss vinegar for the helmets. Then she grins like she's offered you cake. You stagger into the courtyard, just as the sun peeks over the red-tiled rooftops. Morning in the Ludus means a special kind of chaos. Groaning men stretching old wounds, weapons clanging like angry bells, and sand already soaked with sweat from men who haven't even swung a sword yet. Today, your task is to clean the training arena, a flat, sand-filled pit that smells like rust, blood, and the exact opposite of morning dew. Your tools? A bent rake, a chipped bucket, and something that was once a broom, but now mostly functions as an insult to brooms. The sand is layered. Top layer, dust and ash. Second layer, damp and sticky. Third layer, something you're certain used to be. Someone you dig. You rake. You gag. Now and then, a gladiator passes by. Some ignore you. Others nod. One drops an apple core, then steps on it, grinding it into the sand with a look that says, "You'll pick that up." Or else, you do. As you work, you notice a strange shape beneath the sand-curved, bone white. You hesitate. You brush gently. It's a tooth. Human. Still rooted in a bit of jaw. You nearly scream. But remember Felix's warning. Scream only if it's your tooth. So you pocket it. Because apparently that's who you are now. A person who pockets jaw fragments before breakfast. Tulla checks in. Don't forget the arena border. Blood pools under the edges. She's right. You find a trail dark, sticky, coppery, leading toward a cracked cornerstone. The blood hasn't dried. You wonder when the last fight was, or if someone bled during the night. You don't ask. Instead, you start scrubbing with a rag soaked in vinegar and salt. It smells like sour feet in despair. By midday, the sun is high, the sand scorching, and your knees are sunburnt through your thin tunic. You take cover near the shade of a statue, a half-worn marble figure of Mars, god of war, who seems to be laughing at you. Or maybe just grimacing eternally. Hard to tell. A passing medicus tosses a pouch at your feet. Sprinkle this on the edges. Keeps the flies off. You glance inside. Dried basil, crushed figs, and what looks suspiciously like powdered sulfur. You don't ask questions anymore. You do your job. Nearby, two gladiators are sparring. You recognize one. Tall, bald, a net draped over one shoulder and a trident in hand. A Retiarius. The other carries a massive curved blade. They circle, grunting, sweating, exchanging blows. You pause to watch. Just a second. Bad idea. The blade whistles through the air and lands inches from your bucket, spraying sand across your face. The fighters laugh. One shouts, "Next time we aim better." You smile, nervously, because that's what you do when death jokes land near your toes. By late afternoon, you smell worse than you thought possible. Your hands are raw. Your arms tremble. You've used words today like pus layered and spit slicked, and why is this warm? Far more often than anyone should. Still, the arena is clean. For now, you sit on the edge of a stone step. Breath shallow when Tulla appears again. You missed something, she says. You panic. What? Where? She points up. You look. A helmet. On the arena's central post. Apparently, part of your job is to climb and clean it. The post is wooden, splintered, slightly greasy. Climbing it with tired limbs feels like wrestling a tree that hates you. You make it halfway up. Then slip. Land on your back. Dust rises. Your pride doesn't. Tulla sighs. Next time, do it before your legs are pudding. Later that night, as you're rinsing sand from your hair using someone else's leftover foot bath water, you hear someone say, "New one didn't cry today." A small win. You're still aching, still filthy, but not crying. That single quotes, something. You collapse into your corner and stare at the ceiling. It drips in rhythm. One drop every 10 seconds. You count each one like a prayer. Until sleep takes you. And tomorrow promises more sweat, more sand, and less dignity. Night, night, little servant. There's no rooster. There's just yelling. It starts before light touches the tiled roof, echoing down the halls like someone strangling Mars himself. You sit up so fast you hit your head on a wooden beam. Welcome to morning in the LUDUS.TULLA. Storms in with her usual grace, meaning she throws a pair of sandals at your face. You're on grooming today. You blink. Grooming? That sounds almost normal. Like brushing horses or trimming hedges. Nope. It means washing gladiators. The sandals don't fit. They never do. But you shuffle along anyway, heart thumping, in time with the chanting outside. As you enter the thermopolium, the bath and body chamber, you're hit with a wall of smells so complex, it probably has its own dialect. Sweat, ash, olive oil, something like fish, and underneath it all, blood. Always blood. 3 copper tubs steam gently. Buckets are stacked in the corner, along with jugs of herbal oils, scraping tools, and what looks like a very determined sponge. Felix is already there, rolling up his sleeves. Don't just stand there, bucket boy. Start with the feet. Always start with the feet. No one likes a servant who goes straight to the thighs. You nod, because what else is there to do? The first gladiator enters. His name is Cyric. He is, by your estimate, roughly the size of a temple wall and covered in scars that look like they've been arranged for dramatic effect. His smile could curdle milk. He sits on the bench. You knew? You nod. He lifts one foot and plops it into your lap. It's huge, filthy, and smells like a dying basilisk. You scrub and scrub. The grime comes off in layers. Dirt, sand, dried blood. Something green. You missed a toe, Cyric mutters. You check. He's right. It's hiding behind the others like it's scared. You clean it too. Across the room, another servant is oiling a gladiator's arms slow, careful strokes like shining a weapon. Which, come to think of it, is the whole idea. They oil the men not for comfort, but for display. Shiny muscles look better in the arena. They glisten under sunlight, distract opponents, impress crowds. And besides, it makes it harder for swords to get a good grip. Practical and fashionable. Rome's favorite combination. You're handed a small vial. It's rosemary and vinegar, Felix says. Rub it on their chests. Keeps the lice away. Probably. You approach your next subject. An older fighter named Priscus, with graying stubble and eyes that have absolutely seen people explode. You try to avoid eye contact. You fail. Gentle hands, he says, voice like crushed marble. I don't bruise pretty. You nod again. Nodding is your main skill now. The oil is cold. His skin is warm. There's an old tattoo on his collarbone, faded and smudged, but you think it's a wolf eating the moon. As you work, Priscus hums a tune. It's Oddly peaceful dot and delete farts dot loudly dot. He doesn't apologize dot no one laughs. You keep rubbing. Later, you help with hair cutting, shaving, plucking, even applying ash to mask bald spots. Apparently, looking fearsome is half art, half illusion. You sprinkle crushed charcoal on a scar to make it look deeper. You shine teeth with twigs soaked in salt. You learn how to burn off small body hairs using a twisted candle wick. Careful not to light the loincloth, someone says. You're not sure if they're joking dot by mid-morning. You're drenched not from the baths, but from sweat. Your hands are raw. Your bat throbs dot, and then comes the strigil, a metal tool shaped like a bent blade, used to scrape oil and dead skin off gladiators after training. You're handed one and told to assist. You approach a man who looks like he was carved from iron, glistening with oil and dust. He grunts approval as you begin scraping. You quickly realize the difference between dirt and dried blood by texture alone. How do you like the job? He asks. You consider lying. You don't. I think I preferred the rat cage. He laughs. You'll toughen up or die. You nod. Naturally around noon, a horn sounds. It's feeding time. Not for you. For them. You carry platters gruel thick enough to patch walls, boiled eggs, stale bread, and watered down wine. They eat like lions, fast, aggressive, no utensils. You try to slip away for a bite of your own. Tulla catches you. You eat after there. Waste is dumped. Lovely dot, so you dump it. Carting out buckets of water gone cloudy with sweat, blood, and whatever else the bath captured. It sloshes. It spills. It soaks your tunic dot at this point. You've stopped caring. You pass by the courtyard, where others are sparring. A gladiator locks eyes with you, just for a second. You see something there. Not hatred, not cruelty, just tiredness, the kind that goes all the way to the bone. You look away first. That night, you curl up in your corner. Your fingers smell like vinegar and rosemary. Your arms feel like you wrestled. A statue and lost. But you're alive mostly and in Rome, as they say, that's enough to be taxed sleep comes slowly. And tomorrow? Tomorrow you've got laundry. Don't worry it's just full of blood. It begins with a thud not a dramatic one. Not a drumbeat or a war horn. Just the thunk of a damp tunic landing in your arms, wet, heavy, and suspiciously warm. The gladiator doesn't say a word. He just shuffles off, barefoot, trailing a line of pink water behind him like a slug made of bad decisions. You stand there, tunic in hand, trying not to imagine which part of him bled that much. It's laundry day. Or as it's more accurately known in the ludus, the cleansing of sins, sweat, and questionable fluids. The laundry yard sits at the back of the complex, half-walled and open to the sky. Crows perch along the roof tiles, watching you with the same judging gaze your grandmother used when you skipped temple prayers. A wide wooden basin filled with gray water takes center stage, surrounded by stone slabs, buckets, and piles of linens. That could double as siege weapons. Your job? Scrub, and try not to catch anything fungal. Tulla hands you a bristle brush and a clay jar filled with crushed ash, chalk, and a mysterious yellow powder she won't name. Don't ask, she says. It works better if you believe it's lemon. You start with a loincloth. It's single quotes S. Not pleasant. The water turns brown immediately. The fabric smells like something died inside it and then reconsidered. You gag. Quietly. Out loud is forbidden. Next, you attack a tunic with a crusted shoulder stain. You think it might be pus or cheese. Either way, it resists you like a proud Roman senator facing taxes. You scrub harder, brush grating against stone, arms. Burning. And just when you think you're winning, the sky opens up. Rain. Not a gentle drizzle. Not a refreshing mist. A full Roman downpour. Cold. Angry. Judgmental. Within seconds, the yard is mud. The basin overflows. The bucket tips. and you're soaked to the soul. Felix appears, wearing a makeshift oilcloth poncho and the smuggest grin. Known to man. Good news, now you don't have to rinse. You glare, he grins wider. Bad news? You're not allowed to stop. You carry on, kneeling in the sludge, scrubbing tunics that have seen more combat than entire legions. Some of the garments are torn, others stained beyond repair. One still has a tooth tucked into the hem. Human, probably. I'd keep that. Felix says, for luck. You don't. You're not at the souvenir stage yet. At one point, you're handed a cape. Rich red, gold stitching, heavier than expected. It belonged to a Ricciarius who died last week in the arena. They say he fought blindfolded for drama. He also lost. You scrub it quietly, careful not to think too hard about the smell. Or the name. Still embroidered at the hem, Marcus Vento. The threads are frayed, the gold is dull. But for a moment, you see him alive, triumphant, basking in cheers. And now, you're bleaching the last of him into basin water. Don't cry, someone murmurs. They hate that. You weren't. Not really, just rain. From your face by afternoon, the sun returns, hot and cool. Steam rises from the stones. You drag the clean linens onto ropes, strung between pillars, arms aching, shoulders raw. A gust of wind lifts the damp cloths, making them dance. For a second, it's almost beautiful, until a passing guard sneezes on them. Back into the wash they go. Mid-task, you hear a shriek. Not of pain but annoyance. A senior gladiator storms into the yard, holding up a pair of shrunk wool trousers. He's livid. Claims they were custom cut to enhance certain anatomical intimidation. Now they resemble a toddler's pajamas. He demands to know who cleaned them. Everyone looks at you. You brace for punishment. But instead, he just sighs and walks away, muttering something about barbarians doing better laundry. Later, as you haul a full load of clean garments into the storage room, a narrow, dark corridor that smells like mildew and resentment, you pass a small carved mark on the doorframe. A tally. 6 lines crossed. 1 line fresh. Someone's keeping. Score. You don't ask. That night, you lie awake longer than usual. Fingers tingling from lime ash, back sore, knees bruised. You can still smell vinegar under your nails. You stare at the ceiling, wondering if Marcus Vento ever thought about who would clean his cape. Probably not. No one thinks about the servant. Not until the laundry's late. And tomorrow? Tomorrow is the armory. Blades, chains, and polish. Maybe you'll get to hold something sharp this time. Just not the pointy end. Good night, little laundress. The armory smells like sweat trapped inside a coin purse. Old leather, oiled metal, and something acidic like rust trying to eat its way into your lungs. That's your new workspace for the day, tucked behind the training yard beneath a sloped red tile roof where spiders rain and light filters in like secrets. Today is Weapon Maintenance Day, which sounds cool until you realize that in Gladiator terms, maintenance means hours of polishing, sharpening, and not stabbing yourself by accident. You're not here to fight. You're here to scrub blood off blades. Out again. You're handed a cloth, a whetstone, a pot of lanolin, and a set of very specific warnings. Felix grunts as he tosses a dented Gladius onto the bench in front of you. Don't touch the edge. Don't ask how the dent got there. And don't smell the sheath. You nod. You already made the mistake of smelling a helmet last week. You're still recovering. The Gladius is heavier than you expect. You run a finger, not the edge. You're not a total fool along the spine. It's nicked in 3 places. Probably from bone. Use the stone like you're shaving a mouse. Felix says, demonstrating with a graceful motion. Slow, smooth. Don't be the reason someone's blade snaps in a fight. Trust me, they'll remember. You try, you slip. Your thumb brushes the edge. It's just a scratch, but the blood is immediate. Bright red. a single bead rising like it's annoyed you dared bleed near real warriors. Felix raises an eyebrow. That's your tax for the day. You wrap it in a rag and keep working. Around you, blades glint in the dim light, spears, tridents, saké, even a double-bladed axe that looks like it came from a nightmare. You're told to oil every piece. Not too much, not too little. The goal is a slick shine, not a slippery death. You learn how to wrap leather grips. You learn what happens if you wrap them too tight, blisters for the fighter, and a lecture for you. You also learn that some fighters name their weapons. One is called Mother, another the Whisper. One, disturbingly, is just Steve. You clean them all, whispering apologies for the stains you can't scrub out. At midday, the Lanista himself enters. Everyone straightens. He walks with slow purpose. His robes trimmed in red, rings on fingers that have never touched a blade. His eyes flick across the room till they land on you. He picks up a neck tangled, blood dried, some teeth still caught in the knots. Who cleaned this? He asks. You freeze. Tulla steps forward before you can speak. I did. He nods. Says nothing. Walks out. You exhale so hard your soul nearly leaves. Tulla doesn't say anything either. But later, she hands you a better rag. You understand that's her way of saying you owe me. In the afternoon, you're assigned to chain maintenance. Yes, chains, because some matches involve binding, especially when the crowd wants drama. Shackles, cuffs, weighted lengths of iron all, needing to be sanded smooth so they don't tear too much skin before the real show begins. You sit with another servant, a skinny boy named Junius, who claims he once saw a man swallow a dagger. Not in combat, just for fun. He shows you how to rub sand into the links, then oil them down until they shine like wet snakes. It's important, he says. A smooth chain means less drag, and it cuts cleaner. You pause. Chains cut? Junius grins. Everything cuts, if you throw it hard enough. You make a mental note to never upset Junius. By evening, your arms ache like you've wrestled a statue. You've inhaled enough iron dust to build a small chariot. Your tunic is streaked with grease, and your hands smell like steel and old fear. Think it's over. It's not. Final task, Felix says, tossing you a soft cloth and pointing to the weapons rack. The champion's blade. It stands out gleaming, even in low light. Not ornate, not flashy. Just perfect, balanced, honed. The edge whispers as it moves. You approach it like it might bite. You polish it slowly, reverently, fingers barely touching the edge. There are no nicks, no flaws. It's the sort of weapon people die for, and with. You glance at the name carved into the handle, Crixon. You've never seen him fight, but you've heard the stories. They say he kills clean, fast, without shouting. A blade, like his, doesn't scream. It sighs. You return it to the rack like placing a sleeping baby into a cradle. That night, you're too tired to dream, but your hands remember the weight of steel. In tomorrow, you're on kitchen duty. Don't worry. No one ever dies from soup. Except when they do. You never thought soup could be dangerous, but then again, you never thought you'd be using a cleaver larger than your own face to cut goat meat at 5 in the morning while a gladiator watches, licking his lips. Welcome to kitchen duty. The Colina. The kitchen sits near the back of the ludus, far enough from the training yard to keep blood and blades out of the soup. At least, that's the theory. In practice, everything smells faintly like iron. Today, you're apprenticed to a cook named Laro. He's as wide as he is tall, with a beard full of lentils and a wooden spoon that's more weapon than utensil. He doesn't speak much, just grunts, points, and occasionally slaps raw vegetables with disturbing force. Your first job is stirring the morning mash, a porridge of barley, garlic, wine, and what Laro cheerfully calls mystery bits. You don't ask. You just stir, clockwise. Always clockwise. As the pot bubbles like a volcano threatening to sue, Laro moves to prep the protein. You don't watch. The noises are enough. Wet chopping, bones cracking, and the occasional whisper of oops. By now, you know the gladiators don't eat like gods. They eat like war horses with no manners. Buckets of food are dumped into trough-like bowls. Raw eggs, beans, thick-cut meat, stale bread, more barley, sometimes olives if the market hasn't rioted. Everything is coated in oil, salt, and the vaguest concept of flavor. You ladle the mash into bowls, hands shaking. The portions are massive. Enough to knock out a senator if launched correctly. Don't skimp, Laro warns. Hungry men kill more than fed ones, but fed ones complain louder. As you carry a tray through the corridor, a pair of gladiators block your path. One nods at the food. That for us? You shake your head. Training yard. He narrows his eyes. But we're hungry now. You gulp. I am not allowed. He reaches for the tray. You flinch, but then, out of nowhere, Crixon appears, silent, watching. The two men move aside like curtains in a bad play. You pass by with trembling knees, suddenly understanding why his blade didn't need polishing yesterday. It didn't get dirty. At midday, you get your own meal. A burned end of bread, a hunk of onion, and a sliver of goat so small it might be symbolic. You eat quickly, huddled on an overturned bucket in the corner of the spice room. Everything smells like cumin and anxiety. Then comes the second wave, dinner prep. You're tasked with spicing dried lentils, cracking eggs, and turning a crank to grind black pepper until your shoulder clicks. Pepper's expensive, Laro grunts. Try not to sneeze it all over the floor again. You try, you fail. Later, a slave from another ludus arrives with a caged goose and a scroll of complaints about last week's bread delivery. You're told to handle it. You stare at the goose. The goose stares back, furious at being involved in Roman bureaucracy. You sign the scroll with someone else's name. That evening, a messenger arrives. Senators visiting tomorrow, he says. Room goes still. Laro growls. That means the menu changes. No more mystery bits, no more burnt goat, no more stew that tastes like a sweaty helmet. Instead, you're told to prepare delicacies. Stuffed dormice, glazed figs, roasted fowl with herbs that cost more than your entire extended family. You're given a knife with a carved bone handle. A fancy knife. It cuts well, too well. You slice your finger open while peeling pears. No one notices, except the goose. The goose still watches. At sunset, the fighters file in, tired and bleeding, hair still slick with oil. They eat in silence. No conversation. Just the sound of chewing, grunting, and bones being sucked dry. You notice something strange. Crixon doesn't eat. He stares at his bowl. Then, slowly, tips it over. Laro says nothing. The bowl is refilled, still untouched. Later, as you're scrubbing dishes with a rag made of yesterday's tunic, Junius leans over. They say he only eats after a kill, he whispers. Ritual. You pause, look down at the bowl, at your hands, at the knife still tucked into your belt. You realize you just prepared a weapon, just one made of figs and salt. That night, your hands are pruned, your back's an open rebellion, and you fall asleep with the taste of lentils still on your tongue. And tomorrow? Tomorrow is bath day. But not for you. Never for you. Sweet dreams, little chef. You wake to water. Not falling, not flowing, being thrown. A wooden bucket appends its entire contents onto your head, and suddenly you're gasping, soaked, and blinking at a ceiling that was already damp before this injustice occurred. Bath. Day, Felix says from somewhere above you. Far too cheerful for someone who just committed attempted drowning. Not for you. For them, you're the scrubber. You groan. It comes out like a dying toad. Your tunic clings to you as you shuffle toward the balneum, the communal bathing room set deep within the ludus. Unlike the open washing pits for servants, just a corner with a cracked jar and an ambitious frog, this bathhouse is warm, echoing, and built like a temple to steam, sweat, and bruises. You step inside, and promptly get hit in the chest by a wet towel. No one apologizes. The room is a haze of mist and grumbling. Massive tubs line the walls, steam curling up like ghosts. The floor is slick, the air thick, and the scent? A potent mix of lavender, old blood, and wet man. Your job is simple. Assist in the bathing of gladiators. Not for fun, for inspection, every few weeks. The doctors Medici inspect the fighters for hidden injuries, infections, or early signs of the itch. No one wants the itch. Not again. You're handed a strigil again with the familiar curve of bronze worn smooth by years of skin contact. This one is older than you and probably has memories. You try not to think about them. The first gladiator sits in the shallow basin. He's got a gash down one thigh, sealed with dark resin and stubborn pride. You pour warm water over his shoulders and begin scraping slow strokes, pulling off layers of oil, grime, and sand like peeling a particularly aggressive onion. Gentle, he says. Unless you want me to flinch and punch you by accident. You're suddenly very gentle. Tulla. Overseas from the doorway. Check behind the ears. Last time someone missed a boil and it spread. Looked like grapes. You suppress a gag and scrub harder. Next comes a new recruit, young, nervous, built like a basket of sticks. He's clearly scared. Don't let them see it, you whisper as you lather his back. Smile. They hate nervous. He nods shakily. You hand him a cloth and keep moving. You assist with shaving faces, heads, chests, sometimes legs. Less hair means fewer lice, fewer infections, fewer things for an opponent to grab. More importantly, it's a good excuse to look intimidatingly smooth. You learn the difference between a barber's blade and a butcher's. Pressure. Unfortunately, you only learn this after nicking someone's neck. He doesn't flinch. Just glares. You consider fleeing to Gaul. Instead, you hand him a towel and mutter, "You look sharper now." He laughs. You survive. Later, the Medici arrive. Robed, stern, and carrying kits filled with herbs, scissors, and small vials that always seem to glow at the bottom. One lifts a fighter's arm and pokes a swollen lump. That's infected. They cut it open on the spot. The scream echoes. You look away. The blood splashes your foot. Felix leans in. That's why we bathe before inspection. Cleaner wounds, cleaner screams. You think he's joking. He's not. You're tasked with cleaning the post-op mess. A rag. Salt water. A mop that should have retired last century. The next fighter's inspection reveals a cracked rib. He's ordered off the training roster. He cries, not because of the pain, because it means no fights. No money, no meat. You help him dress. He doesn't thank you. He just stares at the wall and mutters a prayer to Mars. Quiet, like a whisper to an old friend. By evening, the baths are silent again. Steam lingers in the corners like forgotten ghosts. You drain the last basin, watching blood and oil spiral away, circling the drain like gladiator memories. You're soaked, sore, and you smell like mint leaves in despair. As you mop, you find a small item tucked behind the soap shelf, a bronze ring, etched with a serpent swallowing its tail. You pocket it. Not for theft, for remembrance. That night, back in your corner, your hands are pruned. Your nails are black, but your conscience feels strangely clean. Bath day is that. Even when the water isn't yours. Tomorrow, you'll wish you'd stayed wet, because tomorrow is latrine duty. Sleep tight, little sponge. You thought nothing could smell worse than a gladiator's laundry. You were wrong. Welcome to latrine duty. The sun isn't even up when you're dragged from your not-quite dreams and handed a shovel. Tulla doesn't speak this time. She just points toward the back of the ludus, where the air is thick, the ground soggy, and hope goes to die. The latrinae sit tucked against the far stone wall, surrounded by cracked pillars and overgrown weeds. It's partly outdoors, partly nightmare. A row of stone seats stretches across a long bench, open underneath, where waste falls into a pit that's older than your ancestors and probably sentient. Your task is simple. Clean it. No. Not just the surface. The pit. You stare into the darkness below and immediately wish you hadn't. Felix appears behind you, face wrapped in linen like he's preparing for a dust storm. Don't breathe too deep. And whatever you do, don't drop the shovel. You nod, tying a rag around your face. It doesn't help. Nothing helps. The stench hits with the force of a charging bull. Sour, damp, and unapologetically human. You try to breathe through your mouth, but it just tastes worse. So you breathe less. That works, briefly, until you pass out. You wake up 5 minutes later with mud on your knees and a gladiator peeing very casually 6 feet away. He whistles. Don't die in the latrines. It's bad luck. You decide then and there that if you do die, it won't be here. Anywhere else. Trampled by a lion? Fine. Gored by a trident? Romantic. But not this. Armed with your trusty shovel. You begin the scooping. It's not glamorous. It's barely survivable. But someone has to clear the pit every few days, or the smell starts sneaking into the sleeping quarters, and no one wants to smell their own regret in their dreams. You haul the contents into a bucket, then haul that bucket outside to the compost mound. You try not to look inside the bucket. Sometimes you hear things move, or whisper. Occasionally, you find things. A broken bracelet, a marble die, a tooth, a whole scroll once illegible now. Unless you read shame. People drop stuff all the time. Felix says, handing you another bucket. And some throw things in on purpose. Secrets belong where no one will go digging. You wonder briefly if anyone's ever hidden a body in the pit. You decide not to ask. Mid-morning, a fight breaks out near the latrines. 2 fighters arguing over dice. One throws a punch. The other retaliates with a bucket. You hope it was empty. You duck behind the wall and clutch your shovel like a shield. Eventually, a guard breaks it up. Neither man's punished. It's not worth it. Fights outside the arena. Free practice. You mop the blood from the stones with the same water you were using to rinse wasted. Yes, that's the level we're at. Later, you help replace the vinegar jars, small clay pots placed under the bench, filled with vinegar and herbs to keep the stench from causing mass hysteria. They don't work, but tradition matters. As you carry one, it cracks in your hand. The liquid splashes your leg. You don't cry. You just go numb. Tulla appears again around midday. Done yet? You nod. She checks your work, grunts, then adds, check behind the last bench. Sometimes rats die back there. You do. There is, in fact, a rat. It is very dead. You name it Marcus and bury it with honor. The afternoon is spent scrubbing the floor tiles. On your hands and knees, with a brush made of straw and disappointment. You hum to pass the time, something tuneless. Something that sounds like survival. A gladiator walks past and drops a coin at your side. You look up. He shrugs. For the smell, or the singing, you pocket it. 1 sestertius closer to freedom. Only, you stopped counting at 12. Freedom costs more than that. By sunset, the latrines are cleaner than you thought possible. Almost dignified. Almost. You sit on the stone bench, not to use it, just to rest. The breeze carries the faintest scent of rosemary and something less. Offensive. You made it. Through latrine duty. That night, Tulla tosses you a dry tunic. You earned this one, new. It's itchy, but it doesn't smell like rot. You lie in your corner, arms sore, hands stained, but stomach strangely settled. And tomorrow? Tomorrow is animal duty. Don't worry. The lions are mostly tamed. Mostly. Sleep well, little shoveler. There's something uniquely humbling about waking up to the sound of a lion yawning. A deep, rumbling harumph that vibrates through the stone floor like a thunderclap filtered through fur and murder. You sit up, heart sprinting ahead of your body, and realize this day isn't going to involve people at all. Today, It's animal duty. You're led behind the arena, where the beasts are kept in low stone enclosures, shaded by tarps and guarded by men with more scars than smiles. The sun hasn't even fully risen, but the place already smells like musk, hay, raw meat, and something less identifiable, something you might call predator anxiety. A trainer named Sirius waves you over. He's missing 2 fingers and has a tattoo of a crocodile down his neck. You're here to shovel, feed, and not die, he says cheerfully. You nod. Start with the leopards. They like quiet. You pass by cages with slitted bars, just wide enough to see gleaming eyes and twitching whiskers. The leopards pace, restless and silent, like arguments waiting to happen. You sweep their enclosures carefully, eyes always on them. They watch your every move like you're a puzzle. They're one step away from solving. Then comes the feeding. Chunks of goat, still warm. You toss them through the bars with a shaky wrist, and the moment the meat hits the ground, it's gone, swallowed whole in a snap of jaws and a low growl that makes your bones forget how to stand. Next up, the BOARS. Larger than you imagined, smellier than you hoped, with eyes full of spite and bodies like walking battering rams. Sirius points at one. Name's Casca. Don't turn your back on him. You don't. Casca still charges. You drop the feed bucket and jump onto the fence. Like your life depends on it, because it does. The boar slams into the wall, snorts, and stalks away like you're the one who inconvenienced him. Sirius laughs so hard he nearly drops a chicken carcass. You'll do fine, he says. Just don't bleed near them. You nod again. You're getting good at that. Then comes the main attraction. The lions. You hear them before you see them, a low, constant rumble of breathing that sounds like a thunderstorm with opinions. There are 3 today, lounging in the largest pen. One stretches, revealing claws the length of your fingers. Another licks a paw stained red. The third is asleep, but even unconscious, he radiates menace. Their names are Tiber, Gilda, and Senator. You're told to sweep out their sleeping quarters while the lions are briefly distracted by a slab of cow being dragged to the far corner. You have 4 minutes, Sirius says. You go in. It's hot, close, and stinks of old fur and fresh power. You sweep quickly, barely daring to breathe. Gilda glances over her shoulder at you once, tail flicking. Tiber ignores you. Senator sneezes, which somehow still sounds threatening. At 3 minutes and 59 seconds, Sirius whistles. You backpedal out so fast you trip over your own feet. He offers a hand. You take it. Better than the last one, he says. That guy panicked and climbed the wall. Lion liked the chase. You try to smile. It's more of a grimace. After that, you help clean the water troughs and restock hay for the zebra, who are far more aggressive than anyone warned you. One of them bites your sleeve and refuses to let go until you bribe it with an apple. Show. Time's in 2 days, Sirius mutters, more to himself than to you. We need them sleek, mean, and just hungry enough. You realize these animals aren't just for decoration. They're performers. Gladiators with paws. And just like the men, they're only ever one mistake away from dying dramatically. Late afternoon. A small cart arrives bearing a monkey in a cage. Sirius sighs. Another comedy act. The monkey hisses at you, baring its teeth. You hiss back. Mutual respect is established. As you help unload it, a scroll falls from the cart, clumsily tied, lightly singed. You pick it up. A note from the arena master. Request for Lion and Gladiator combat finale. High-profile guest. Make it spectacular. You hand it to Sirius. He grunts. They always ask for spectacular. They never stay to watch what it costs. That evening, you sit on a bale of hay, exhausted, slightly mauled, but alive. The animals are fed. Their eyes shine in the twilight. Somewhere, Senator growls in his sleep. You look down at your scratched arms, your dirt-covered tunic, and the single apple you saved. You toss it to Casca. He doesn't eat it. He just stares, You nod. He nods. Peace. And tomorrow? Tomorrow you help. With arena prep. Sand, paint, and bones. Sleep well, little lion tamer. Sand. It gets everywhere. In your sandals, your ears, your thoughts. You wake with it in your mouth and end the day with it, clinging to your ribs like guilt. Today is arena prep, and it starts before dawn with a wheelbarrow, a rake, and a warning. Don't dig too deep, Tulla says. You don't want to know what's under there. You don't ask. You never ask anymore. The arena is empty when you arrive, a vast oval of golden dust, blood-stained stone, and fading echoes. The stands loom high, rows upon rows of carved marble where the crowd will sit tomorrow eager for screams, spills, and dramatic last stands. Your job today is to make it look new. As if yesterday's carnage never happened. You and 2 others. Start at one end, dragging heavy rakes across the sand, leveling it out. Every few feet, your tool snags on something, bone, cloth, something unnameable. You stop, dig it up, toss it into the do not ask bucket, and keep going. You find a snapped arrow shaft, a finger bone, still wearing a bronze ring, half, a sandal, chewed. Junius, working beside you, whistles. Place has more relics than a temple. You nod, pressing your foot against a fresh patch of sand, smoothing it down. No evidence. No memory. Mid-morning. The artists arrive. Yes, artists. Because before the crowd watches people die, they want aesthetic. The arena floor is painted, sectioned, dressed up for themes. Tomorrow's event? A mock battle of Carthage. Which means fake ruins, ship parts, and one incredibly expensive papier-mâché elephant. You help carry props, burnt shields, plastic ivy, barrels painted to look like amphorae. Someone installs a small wooden tower. You're told to cover the base with sand so it doesn't tip when someone inevitably gets thrown into it. It doesn't have to last. The designer mutters, dabbing red paint on a fake brick. It just has to collapse beautifully. By noon, you're tasked with blood painting. Yes, that's a thing. Old blood is pressure washed off. The walls mostly, but the crowd likes the look of a fresh kill zone. So they used pig's blood, mixed with water, and sometimes wine for a better color. You're given a sponge and told to splash with feeling. So you do. It's disturbing how quickly you get good at it. The center of the arena is decorated with a set of wooden crates stacked like ruins. You pour sand around them, then dig shallow pit trap spots where fighters can stumble or fall. They're hidden, intentional. Another layer of cruelty. Felix appears with a bucket of bones. Real ones, probably cow. Possibly not. These go in the pit, he says. Symbolism. You bury them beneath the sand like secrets. The arena is nothing if not theatrical. Later, as the sun starts to lower, the Ludus owner himself visits, flanked by guards. Wearing white. Always white. You wonder if he just burns his tunics after each day. He walks the arena slowly, nodding once at each section. Then he stops in front of you. You freeze. He looks at the sand, your rake, the fake blood stains. Good, he says. Make them believe. It hit. He walks away. You finally exhale. In the late afternoon, you're handed a new job, arena scenting. Apparently, if the wind blows wrong, the whole place can smell like iron and goat. So you scatter herbs, rosemary, mint, even crushed citrus peel into pots lining the base of the arena. Distraction for the nobles, Tulla says. They like dying men to smell festive. By sundown, the arena gleams with false freshness. Sand, painted props, strategically placed puddles of not quite blood. A stage set for death, dusted and ready. You're given one final task. Climb to the upper tier and light the torches. One by one, the arena glows with flickering orange fire. From above, it's beautiful, golden, even. Holy, you realize something strange. The arena looks peaceful. When it's empty. Like a sleeping lion. It won't stay that way. Tomorrow, there will be screams, steel, stomping hooves, and flying nets. Bones will break where you place that trap. Someone will trip over the bone you buried and fall for real, and you'll rake it smooth again the next day. Tonight, though, the sand is still. You lie on a bench near the gate, eyes open to the stars overhead. They seem softer tonight. Or maybe you're just numb. Tomorrow's not yours, but tonight you rest. Sleep well, little stagehand. You wake up to the sound of trumpets. Not the fancy kind that signal the emperor's entrance. No, these are rough, brassy blares that sound like someone strangling a metal goose. It's the signal for arena day, and everything moves faster now. Sharper, meaner. You're not working the kitchens, or the laundry, or even the animals. You're on runner duty, which means you're everywhere. Your eyes, ears, legs, and panic wrapped into a sweaty tunic. Your job is to carry orders, fetch water, deliver forgotten weapons, calm panicked fighters, and if necessary, stand very still while covered in dust. So no one blames you for anything. Your first order comes before you've even finished tying your sandals. Water to Crixon. Now. You sprint to the storage amphory, fill a clay cup carefully, and dart through the underhalls to the fighter prep chambers. The air smells like oil, leather, and the kind of anticipation that tastes like electricity. Crixon is sitting silently, arms crossed, eyes closed. You hold out the cup. He takes it, drinks, doesn't look at you. You take that as a win. Next, someone needs fresh sand thrown over a blood-stained path by the animal gate. You do it without question. Then a message. Change in match order. Gladiator Tibulus moved to third slot. Inform Medicus. You don't know who Tibulus is. You find out when you enter a chamber and see a man with a broken nose, laughing while punching a wooden post. You tell him. He spits blood and thanks you with a nod. Then you're off again. The crowd has begun arriving, their chatter echoing like birds with coin purses. The nobles are dressed in absurd colors, plumed hats and fabrics so bright you worry they'll frighten the lions. One senator drops a honey cake. You almost pick it up. Almost. Backstage, things are chaos wrapped in bronze. A helmet is missing. You're sent to find it. Turns out, it was being used as a fruit bowl in the servant quarters. You rinse it with vinegar and bring it back just in time to avoid the world's angriest fist. You get called again. A net is torn. You sprint to the storeroom, grab another, and hurl it back like a discus. You've never felt more athletic. Somewhere behind you, a horn sounds. First match. You're not allowed to watch, but the sounds filter through. A cheer, a grunt, a scream, a silence. The ground seems to tremble. Maybe it's your legs. Between matches, you run water to the medics, towels to the fighters, a dagger to someone who probably shouldn't be trusted with one. Junius passes you, arms full of spears. Smile. He says, grinning. You do. Barely. Then comes the beast match. You're told to assist Sirius near the animal gate. You find him tightening a harness around Tiber, the lion who looks extremely unimpressed by all this pageantry. Sirius hands you a long iron pole. Not a weapon, he says, just for nudging. If he charges, drop it. Don't be a hero. You nod, trying not to look like a snack. The gate creaks open. Tiber walks out like he owns the arena. The crowd gasps. Someone faints. You do your job, stay quiet, stay out of sight, close the gate fast behind him. The sand shifts under your feet like it's alive. Tiber doesn't roar. He just waits. A moment later, the gladiator enters. They circle. You don't. Watch the rest. You're already running back to fetch a banner for the next act. By midday, your tunic is soaked. Your feet are blistered. Your breath smells like panic and dried figs. You collapse on a bench for 30 seconds before another runner grabs your shoulder. Clean robe. VIP fell in blood. Now. You sprint to the laundry, grab a pressed linen robe. and return just in time for a very upset noblewoman to scream at you in 3 different dialects. You don't understand a word. You bow anyway, you deliver it. She calms. Another wind. Afternoon matches blur together. Spears clash. Sand flies. You carry chalk, ropes, spare shields, and once, an entire roasted duck to the Lannista's viewing box. You're basically invisible, which, in the arena, is power. Evening comes. The light turns gold. One last match. You don't run this time. You stand watching from behind the columns as Crixon enters. The crowd hushes, then roars. You grip a water jug like it's a holy relic. He doesn't acknowledge them. Just walks, steady, like a storm given legs. The match begins. It's quick. Brutal. Precise. You don't blink. And when it ends, you're still holding the water jug. He returns. Blood on his arm, a cut on his cheek. He sees you. Takes the jug, drinks, nods. Then walks away. You exhale for the first time in what feels like hours. Arena. Day ends with firelight and the sound of trumpets retreating. You sweep the sand with Junius, side by side in silence. He breaks it first. Not bad for a first-timer. You laugh. It's weak, but real. Tomorrow, you'll clean it all again. But tonight, the arena sleeps. And so do you. Sleep well, little runner. You wake up late, which is to say, just barely early enough to avoid getting a sandal to the head. Tulla glares at you from the doorway. You're on rations duty today. Don't mess it up. One wrong portion and someone ends up starving. Or stabbing. She leaves before you can ask what that even means. You find out soon enough that the ration hall is a narrow storeroom tucked behind the training yard, lined with shelves stacked with amphorae, bread baskets, sacks of grain, olive jars, and cheeses that seem to hum with age. Everything smells vaguely edible, but mostly like salted regrets. You're handed a notched stick, the Gladiator's food tally. Each fighter has their symbols scratched into the wood. Your job, match the right amount of food to the right fighter. Don't overfeed, warns Marcus, the kitchen steward, who looks like he was carved from stone and regret. Meat goes to winners, bread to survivors, fruit to favorites. You glance at the tally. No names, just symbols, a sword, a spiral, a lion, a handprint. One's literally just a fish. You squint. Who's the fish? Marcus smirks. Oh, that's Basso, allergic to honey. Don't kill him. Great, you're handed a small cart and told to begin deliveries. One by one. You start with Crixon, winner of yesterday's match. He gets meat, olives, and a whole apple. You roll the cart over to his chamber. He takes the food with a glance, no words. You nod like a professional food ghost and roll on. Next, Junius. He gets flatbread, half an onion, and a smirk from you. Luxury, he says, chewing with his mouth open. What did I do to deserve this? Didn't die, you shrug. Minimum requirement met. Further down the hall, you deliver to newcomers. Their rations are smaller, meaner, more crust than bread, more pits than olives. They eat in silence, watching you with the quiet hunger of men who know they're not worth remembering yet. One asks, "Any wine?" You shake your head. He nods. Figures. Then comes the medicus's corner. You bring herbs and watered wine for injured fighters, bandaged heads, splinted arms, a man with stitches across his ribs like crooked lace. Leave it there, the medicus says, not looking up from a salve pot. And don't ask what's in the broth. You weren't going to. You deliver food to a man who won't make it to. Tomorrow, you can tell by his color. He still eats every bite. Back in the storeroom, you're tasked with restocking the ration crates. You sort lentils, barley, and salted fish. The fish fight back. Or maybe that's your imagination. You find a moldy loaf tucked in the corner, buried under a sack. Throw it, Marcus says. You do. It hits the compost pile with a thud and a puff of green. Then, a special order arrives. 3 dates, 2 figs, and a honeyed roll. for a visitor. A noble watching his pet gladiator train. You carry it on a tray like it's made of gold. There's something oddly soothing about sharpening a blade until you remember who it's meant to cut. Today is weapon duty, and the forge is already awake when you arrive. Flames roar, sparks snap, and the clang of iron on stone rings like some angry god is building a drumline in your skull. You meet Narrated, the armorer. He's built like a furnace and smells like soot and onions. He hands you a whetstone, points to a rack of weapons, and says just one word: start. You begin with the Gladiator's short, wide-bladed swords, brutal and practical. You've seen what they do. Up close, now you're smoothing their edges. With trembling hands, dragging the stone in long, rhythmic strokes. The first time you nick your finger, Narrated laughs. Now it knows who you are. You wrap it in cloth and keep going. Once the swords are done, you move to tridents. Trickier to sharpen, harder to carry. You almost impale yourself twice, which, according to Narrated, is below average. You'd be surprised how many servants take themselves out with a spearhead. I call it voluntary resignation. He gives you a smaller task next, oiling the hilts. The leather dries fast in this heat, and cracked grips mean lost fights. You work methodically, rubbing oil into each handle like you're massaging fate. Nearby, a pile of nets is being repaired. You help mend the cords with twine and patience, tying knots while listening to Junius debate whether net fighting is art or farce. It's ballet with strangling. He insists. You nod, because the alternative is debating with a man holding a pointy fork. Mid-morning, you're told to inspect blunted weapons used for training or non-lethal matches. You run your fingers over wooden swords, dented helmets, and clubs wrapped in rawhide. Some of them still have dried blood. They say they're safe, says Tulla, who's watching from the shadows, but a cracked rib feels pretty real. Then comes the arrow inspection, hundreds of shafts lined up in rows. You check each for straightness, balance, and clean fletching. Some have blunted tips for crowd control drills. Others are real. Very real. You find one with a barbed head, designed to tear more on the way out than in. You put that one back very carefully. Narrated grunts and tosses you a chainmail vest next. You ever cleaned one of these? You shake your head. Good. Now's the time to learn. You scrub the links with vinegar and sand, hanging it to dry over a frame. It's heavier than you expected, like wearing your own tomb. Later, you're sent to the storage vault, where the rare weapons are kept. You need a torch to see. The room smells like metal and secrets. There's a Sika, a curved dagger favored by Thracians, designed to reach around shields. A scissor, two blades hinged like pincers, meant to trap and twist. A spiked gauntlet. A sling and stones etched with curses. You inventory everything, carefully, respectfully, like each piece has its own mood. Back in the main hall, you help set up the weapon racks for the next day's match. Each fighter chooses their own, based on skill, style, or superstition. Some choose by weight, others by color. One by sound. He flicks each blade until one hums right. Crixon walks in. He doesn't choose. He just picks up the same gladius he's always used. The handle fits his palm like a second skin. He looks at you. You sharpen this? You nod. He nods back. That's it. That's your Medal of Honor. At dusk, Narrated offers you a bowl of lentils and half a roasted onion. For not dying, he says. You eat sitting on the forge steps, the sky going copper above you, the smell of oil and iron thick in your lungs. Somewhere, a blade whistles through the air. Someone's practicing late. You think about the dozens of weapons you touch today. You wonder which one will spill blood tomorrow. And you hope, just hope, it's clean tomorrow. Tomorrow you're on grave duty. Because not everyone walks back from the arena. Sleep well, little armorer. Grave duty. No one volunteers for it. They assign it quietly, like it's a secret no one wants to hold. A nod from the overseer. A glance from Tulla. A bucket of lime placed near your feet with no explanation. You wake earlier than usual. Before the birds, before the sun even cracks the edge of the sky. Because the dead don't wait, and neither do the flies. The burial ground is outside the city wall, just beyond the practice yard. You follow a narrow path, the grass brittle beneath your sandals do turning your steps cold and real. A few olive trees lean toward the horizon like tired mourners. Smoke curls from a small pit where yesterday's linens were burned. 2 others are already there. An old servant named Lucan, who doesn't speak unless necessary, and a young boy, barely 10, whose job is just to carry clean cloth and not look too closely. No one tells jokes here. The bodies arrive one by one, wrapped in canvas. Some torn, some soaked, all heavy in a way that has nothing to do with weight. You help unload them from the cart, eyes fixed forward, hands under shoulders and heels. Flesh gives slightly. You swallow the urge to shiver. The first is a man with a cracked jaw and one sandal still tied. His name was probably shouted yesterday by the crowd. Today, he's silent. You place 2 coins on his eyes, not gold, not even silver. Just enough to keep the afterlife. Gatekeepers satisfied. Then you dust him with lime to keep the rot down. Lucan digs while you wash down the stretcher. The boy sets the cloth. It's a dance, solemn and practiced. By midday, you've buried 6. And that's a light day. 1 man was cut clean down the chest. Another had no name and no teeth. The medicus thinks he was new, not yet trained. No one claimed his body. You do it anyway. There's a rule. If they die in the arena, they get the rights. Even the nameless, you whisper over each grave. Not prayers, exactly. Just something. A rhythm, a murmur. A thread of voice so the dirt doesn't feel so final. By afternoon, the sun is a hammer and the smell is everywhere. You use vinegar-soaked cloth to cover your mouth. Lucan doesn't bother. He's been here too long for modesty. Occasionally, someone from the Ludus comes by with a message. Special request, a guard says. That one's going to the cremation pyre. Noble family watching. You help load the body onto a separate cart. A broken spine, but not a scratch on his face. The perfect corpse for a dramatic goodbye. Back at the burial field, one grave is different, shallow, fresh, with a small wooden marker. You ask Lucan. Servant, he says. Slipped near the animal pens, didn't stand a chance. You stare at the marker. It just says, R. Could have been anyone. Could have been you. Later, you're asked to burn the cloths. Bloodied linens, shredded tunics, rags too ruined to save. You pile them in the pit, pour oil over the top, and strike a flint. The flame whooshes to life, and for a second, you see colors red, blue, even a flash of gold. Someone had worn silk. Once. The fire eats it all the same. As dusk creeps in, you help plant olive branches over the newest graves. Not tradition, just something green. Something alive. The boy hums a little tune. You don't stop him. When all is done, Lucan claps dust from his hands and nods. No speeches. He says. You agree. The cart wheels creak as you head back to the Ludus. Your hands are raw. Your mind is quiet. You pass the arena on the way. It's empty now, but you can still hear it. Tomorrow, it will demand more names. And the earth will open again. But tonight the ground is still, the graves are full, and the sky is soft. Sleep well, little mourner. You dream of drums. Low, slow at first like heartbeats underwater. Then faster, louder. They become footsteps, hooves, shouting, cheering. By the time you open your eyes, the sound is real. Parade Day, which is a misleading name because no one's throwing flowers. Today, the gladiators march through the city in full armor, up and down the main avenue like living war trophies. It's spectacle, pageantry, the crowd's first taste before blood hits sand. Your job? Wardrobe duty, which sounds glamorous until you're elbow deep in tunics that smell like boiled onions and crushed dreams. You report to the dressing hall, where the fighters are already gathering. The air is thick with the scent of iron polish, sweat, and arguments about who gets which plume color. Tulla hands you a checklist and a fistful of brass pins. You're on crests, belts, and emergency stitching. Don't mess up or someone's. Chest plate falls off mid-procession. You nod. You always nod that first up. Gaius, of course, he doesn't speak. He just lifts his arms. You secure his bronze cuirass, tighten the straps, and snap his lion head pauldron into place. He smells like leather and terrifying potential. Next is Junius. He insists on extra flare red sash, golden trim, and a cape that somehow makes him look even more overconfident. Parades for the crowd, he winks. Might as well sparkle. You help lace his sandals. He's talking about how his calf muscles deserve their own statue. By the time the sun is fully up, you've adjusted 20 belts, tied 12 plumes, and sewn 3 last-minute patches. Onto LOINCLOTHS. The makeup crew arrives next. Yes, that's a thing. They smear ash and red pigment across certain fighters' cheeks. Battle glow, they call it. You hand them a cloth when one accidentally paints their own nose. Then you help carry standards' long poles, draped in fabric, bearing the symbol of the ludus. The crowd expects visual metaphors. The moment the gates creak open, the roar hits you like hot wind. People line the avenue. Children on shoulders, nobles in balconies. Flower petals mix with dust in the air. Someone's playing a flute very off-key. The gladiators march in formation rows of polished death in sandals. You walk beside the carts, ready with pins, cloth, and spit if needed. You're not technically part of the show, but you're close enough to smell the wine on the senator's breath. One old man yells, "Show us a fight." Junius blows him a kiss. Everyone laughs. At the plaza, there's a blessing ceremony. A priest raises his hands and mumbles something about strength and honor. The gladiators kneel. You stand behind them, holding Gaius's helmet like it's a crown of bronze. When he rises, he takes it from your hands like it weighs nothing and nods. One nod. Again. That's enough. After the blessing, the fighters pose for the crowd. You help. Rearrange a fallen banner, wipe blood-red dust from a shield, and catch a child's thrown apple before it beans a scribe in the face. Midday heat bears down. The men sweat. Their armor gleams. You hand out cloth to mop brows between formations. Junius pretends to faint for dramatic effect and lands directly in a basket of dates. "You didn't catch me," he complains, juice running down his chin. "I didn't." "Try," you reply. By late afternoon, the procession turns back toward the ludus. You're more tired than the men in armor, somehow. Maybe because they're trained for glory. You're trained for tightening buckles. Back in the dressing hall, chaos explodes in reverse. Helmets off, plumes dumped, sandals flung. You scramble to collect pieces before someone steps on a greave. Worth more than your life. Then come the post-parade baths, not for you, of course. You just carry the towels. The fighters relax. Some laugh. Others sit in silence, replaying the noise in their minds. Gaius disappears without a word. Junius carves his initials into the dressing bench. You sit by the door, tuning out the world. Your fingers are raw from laces. Your arms smell like 10 different kinds of oil. You think about the crowd's cheers, how they always want more. More. Glitter. More power. More blood. You wonder if anyone ever cheered for the servants. Probably not. Still, the armor shone. The belts held. No helmets fell. You did your job. Tomorrow? Tomorrow is training accident day. Which, judging by the name, will involve accidents. Sleep well, little Taylor. The thing about training accident day is that no one calls it that out loud. It's just understood. Whispers passed in the corridors, glances exchanged in the kitchens, the way people don't linger near the practice yard. Because today, the fighters train with real weapons, not blunted sticks, not choreographed moves. Steel meets steel. Intention meets instinct. And when that happens, when adrenaline replaces reason, someone always gets hurt. You're assigned to spotter duty, which is a fancy way of saying person who fetches bandages and doesn't get in the way. You're handed a bucket, a rag, and a small vial of vinegar for disinfection, which smells like regret and stale wine. The training yard is already alive when you arrive, shouting, grunting, sand scuffed into clouds beneath stomping feet. Fighters pair off, circling each, other like wolves testing for weakness. Their chests are bare, arms oiled, blades gleaming in the morning sun. Your job is to watch everything and say nothing. You see, Junius take a hit to the shoulder that sends him spinning into a barrel. He laughs it off, but the way he favors that. Arm afterward tells you it hurts. You hand him a cloth. Tell no one. He whispers. Next, a younger fighter scavel a missteps during a feint and takes a pummel to the temple. He drops, not unconscious, but dazed enough to stare at the clouds like they're speaking to him. You crouch beside him. Blink twice if you remember your name. He blinks 3 times. Close enough. You help him sit under the olive tree at the edge of the yard, press in vinegar-soaked cloth to his head. He hisses like a kicked cat. You almost apologize, then remember. Pain is half the job. As the day wears on, the training grows more intense. The instructors begin the kill match drills fast. Brutal simulations of arena combat. No shields. No mercy. Just footwork, reflex, and will you refill water jars. OP sweat off handles, and keep a running mental list of who's bleeding more than usual. Crixon is a storm. He moves like the blade wants him to win. Every strike is measured. Every block is quiet. But even he isn't immune. A dagger slips during a grapple, slices across his thigh. He doesn't flinch. Just presses a hand to the wound, wraps a strip of cloth around it, and keeps going. You stare. He catches your eye. No time for soft edges, he says. You nod, mostly because what else are you going to do? Offer a hug? Meanwhile, Gaius doesn't even train with the others. He works alone, farther down the yard. His movements are slower, more deliberate, like he's rehearsing something he's already won. No accidents touch him, but the ones near him seem sharper. By midday, a man falls hard, trips on a training rope, lands on a buried weight, and shatters his ankle. The scream cuts through the yard. Everyone stops, just for a breath. Then they go right back to sparring. You and another servant help carry the man to the medicus, who mutters curses under his breath while splinting the foot. He's done, he says. You glance back at the yard. No one looks. Trainer calls for more rotation. You return with clean towels. Someone asks for fresh bandages. You hand them over and pretend not to notice the blood already soaking through. At one point, you hear an argument. A younger fighter claims his partner struck after the call. Voices rise. Hands twitch toward weapons. The trainer steps between them. Do it again, he says, but slower. And if either of you flinch, you're both scrubbing latrines. The fight resumes. Slower, more careful, more deadly. You spend the last hour restocking the training rack swords, spears, even an old trident that wobbles slightly at the middle. You wonder how many of these weapons will be seen again on the sand. In the arena. In someone's chest. You finish by washing the practice helmets inside and out. Sweat, blood, and hair. You don't flinch anymore. You barely notice. The metal's warm from the sun, cool from the water. Balanced in your hands like history. As dusk paints the yard in long shadows, the fighters disperse. Some limping, some laughing. One not walking at all. You gather the discarded wraps, the empty buckets, the dropped blades someone forgot. You wipe the sweat from your brow with the edge of your tunic. Tomorrow's the day before the games, which means cleaning. Polishing. Final preparations. and the quiet kind of dread that sticks to your ribs like old fear. But for now, the yard is quiet. The blades are back in their racks, and you're still standing. Sleep well, little shadow. The day before the games is quieter than you expected. Not silent, never silent, but there's a kind of tense hush hanging over the ludus. It's like the whole building knows what's coming and is holding its breath. Today, you're on final prep duty, which is a polite way of saying, make everything shine or be blamed for the curse. You start with armor polishing. Rows and rows of greaves, helmets, chest plates. Each one must be scrubbed until you can see your reflection, or at least a shinier version of doom. You use vinegar, cloth, a little ash, and a lot of elbow grease. Your hands are soon blackened, the rag nearly disintegrates, and your shoulders ache like you've been boxing with bricks. Crixen's armor is simple. No frills, just smooth bronze that feels heavier than it looks. You polish it slower than the others, carefully, reverently, like you're smoothing the edge of a prayer. Then comes Junius's armor, which of course has extra buckles and a decorative sash that must be precisely puffed. He supervises your work from a bench, eating grapes. You know, he says, if I die tomorrow, at least I'll look fabulous. You reply without looking up. Try not to die. I just cleaned this. He tosses a grape at you. Misses. You win. After armor comes weapon inventory. You and two others count blades, pair them with their fighters, and check every edge. You notice a spear with a slight curve. Not broken, but imperfect. You flag it. Good eye, Heratus grunts, replacing it with another dot. It's not about aesthetics. It's about seconds in the sand. A faulty weapon means a shorter life. Next, you're sent to the animal pens. You don't go near the cages, you're not suicidal, but you help prepare the arena props. Netting, trapdoors, rolling gates, and a wheeled cage big. Enough for a bear. Someone sweeping. Feathers out of a chute. You don't ask. Then comes the sand prep. It's not just any dirt. It's imported, sifted, and mixed with crushed shells for color. They say the crowd loves the way it catches light and blood. You help rake it evenly across the holding area. Smooth enough to look perfect, coarse enough to grip sandals. You pour a small bucket of fresh sand through your fingers. It smells like salt. Like performance, like fate. After lunch bread, olives, silence. You assist the medicus. Not with people, but with pre-fight kits. Bandages, salves, sponges soaked in vinegar. He shows you how to pack a wound fast. You watch. You don't ask why he looks so tired. He gestures to a box of amulets. Superstition, he mutters. They'll all want one. You sort them. Bone, bronze, tiny carved lions. Rings of iron too small for fingers. Each fighter gets one. Not because it works, but because it might. Later, you find yourself in the dormitories, helping distribute fresh tunics, clean blankets, one last round of water jugs. The fighters are quieter than usual, focused, some pray. Others sharpen knives they'll never get to use. One writes a letter to his brother and asks you to deliver it if he doesn't finish. Take it. Fold it. Saying nothing. Junius breaks the tension by stealing Crixen's boots and declaring them better suited for comedy. Crixen doesn't laugh. Junius gives them back. Even he knows where the line is today. At dusk, you help set the name tiles for tomorrow's order. Wooden plaques, each with a symbol. No names, just signs. Sword, Wolf, Flame, Star. You arrange them by fight sequence under the trainer's stern eye. It's quiet work, sacred work. When you're done, you realize the last tile, the one at the bottom of the list, is blank. You ask about it. The trainer says, always leave room. For who? He doesn't answer. You sleep in your corner of the servants' quarters that night, next to a broom and a pile of laundry. The walls are humming with tension. You close your eyes and hear armor shifting, swords sliding into sheaths. A whispered prayer. A stifled sob. Tomorrow, The crowd returns. Tomorrow, the sand drinks deep. But tonight, the air is still and dreams. Wait patiently. Sleep well, little guardian of the last calm. The day of the games begins before the sun has decided if it wants to rise. You're shaken awake by Tulla, who whispers the only words that matter. They're ready. No time for breakfast. No time to stretch. No time to be human. Just movement. You. Run. The Ludus is already alive. Torches flicker in the halls, illuminating polished armor and faces tight with silence. The fighters are awake, sitting on benches, some staring ahead, others murmuring to themselves. One is smiling. You don't trust that smile. Your first task, dressing duty, everything must be perfect. This is not battle. This is theater. You help Gaius tighten his bracers. Junius wants his cape pinned exactly where it flutters with tragic elegance. You adjust his belt 3 times. He says, "This could be the last thing I wear, and I refuse to die asymmetrical." You check for symmetry. It's flawless. Next, the pre-fight rituals. One fighter smears ash across his forehead and says nothing. Another kisses a wooden charm shaped like a cat. A third insists on being slapped hard before every match. You slap him. He says, "Thanks. Now I'm ready." Out in the courtyard, carts are being loaded. Helmets, shields, spears, nets, even those ridiculous oversized props meant for spectacle bouts. A wooden chariot, a fake crocodile, a golden boar mask. You help carry the last of the gear to the tunnel that leads beneath the arena. The path curves upward, dark and cool, and the walls are marked with scratches. Not from the carts, from fingers. The crowd above is roaring now. You feel it before you hear it, like the earth shaking in anticipation. The games have begun. The first fight is a warm-up beast against beast. You don't watch, you're too busy fetching water. Sweat buckets. Towels. Salves. Hope. When the first fighters are called, you walk them halfway down the tunnel. You're not allowed beyond the gate. You stop at the shadows, hand them their weapons, meet their eyes. Some look scared. Some look dead already. Crixon passes you. You try to say something. He just nods. That nod again. Gaius follows later, flanked by handlers like a prized bull. He doesn't even blink. He walks like the sand already belongs to him. You wait by the gate. You hear the crowd. Gasp. Then cheer. Then scream. One man returns from the first match bleeding but alive. You help pull him to the side, where the medicus waits. You hold his hand. As they stitch his leg, he squeezes your fingers. Too tight. You don't let go. By midday, the sun is high and cruel. The arena dust is white-hot. Your tasks become faster. Messier. You swap tunics, reapply oil, clean blood off blades that are immediately stained again. At one point, you carry a fallen fighter's sword back through the tunnel. It's heavier than it was that morning, or maybe you are. You don't ask his name. You don't need to. Back in the storage room, someone throws up. Not a fighter, a noble youth who thought watching from close up would be exciting. You hand him a cloth and say, "First time?" He nods, pale. You hand him water. He drinks like it's penance. Later, in a lull between matches, Junius sits beside you. "You know," he says, "you might be the last face I see." You snort. "Let's hope it's my good side." He chuckles, then grows quiet. "Thanks for fixing my cape." And just like that, he's gone again, back into the dust, back into the noise. You hear the cheers rise again. You don't know for whom. Evening creeps closer. The matches grow more brutal. The crowd wants drama now. They want thunder. They want blood spilled artistically. You deliver water. You deliver bandages. Deliver final glances when the sun finally dips low and the trumpets call for the last match. You're numb from the inside out. You barely notice how the air has cooled. You just keep moving. When it's over, and the fighters return, those who still can, you help remove armor caked in dust and blood. You don't ask questions, you just clean. You eat a crust of bread in the hallway. The quiet tastes like metal, and still, tomorrow comes. And still, there will be more games. But tonight? Tonight the tunnel is dark, the sand is wet, and you are whole. Sleep well, little servant of the spectacle. The morning after the games feels like the aftermath of a storm, except instead of broken trees, there are bandaged limbs. Instead of scattered leaves, there are bruises and blood-stained cloth. You're assigned to recovery duty, which means your entire day revolves around keeping the surviving gladiators alive. Or at least alive enough to fight again. First stop, the infirmary. The room is dim and warm, smelling of vinegar, herbs, and something metallic you try not to name. Beds line the walls, each occupied by a fighter in some stage of groaning, snoring, or staring silently at the ceiling like it betrayed them. You check on Scaevola. First he's wrapped like a mummified burrito. Did we win? He whispers. We survived, you reply. Same thing. He mumbles before falling back asleep. You help the medicus change bandages. It's messy. It's slow. It's close. You hold down a fighter's arm while a dislocated shoulder is pushed back into place. He bites into a cloth and screams like he's being torn in two. You don't flinch. You pour water over wounds, crush herbs in a bowl, and stir a concoction that smells like old socks and sadness. Drink. You tell the next man. He does. He retches. He drinks again, outside the infirmary. You're pulled away to tend to equipment salvage. Not all weapons survived yesterday either. You inspect bent swords, shattered spears, cracked shields with designs carved into them that now look like faded memories. You help Horatus separate what can be repaired and what needs to be melted down. He hands you a dagger with a broken tip. Still good for peeling apples. He shrugs. You keep it. Later, you're sent to the laundry station. Not for the faint of heart. Piles of bloodied tunics, sand-caked boots, and shredded belts awake your attention. You scrub them in cold water that turns pink. You hang them in rows under the sun, where they sway like defeated banners. Nearby, Junius is reclining, wrapped in a light robe, sipping broth. You know, he says, if my spleen hadn't gotten involved, I would have won. You stare. He lifts the bowl. Still dramatic though, right? You grin. Very. The medicus later sends you to collect used bandages for burning. You carry the bucket to the fire pit outside the ludus. The flames crackle. You toss in the cloths. One by one, they hiss and curl into ash. The smoke smells like medicine and memory. On the way back, you pass by the training yard. It's empty today. Still, the sand is undisturbed. Except for a lone footprint. You sweep it away. Back inside, you're asked to deliver food to the fighters who can't stand yet. You carry bowls of broth, cheese, bread soft enough for swollen jaws. Some of them thank you. One tries to flirt. Another cries quietly. You sit with him. You don't speak. You just exist in the same space until the shaking stops. Then, you bring him more broth. In the evening, the ludus holds a small ceremony. Not for the dead. No, those are buried. This is for the survivors. The lanista speaks. He lists names, victories, injuries, acts of bravery. Some fighters raise their cups. Others lower their heads. You stand in the shadows, unnoticed, but not forgotten. Later, Crixon passes you a leather strap. For your belt, he says. It's worn and singed. Part of his old gauntlet. You nod. Thanks. He nods back. That's all. That night, you return to your corner, wash your hands, and sit still. The air is cool. The candles are low. Your arms ache. Your soul buzzes. You've seen death, carried pain. Cleaned blood with fingers meant for better things. But somehow, you're okay. Tomorrow? Tomorrow you return to cleaning. To lifting. To sewing. But tonight? Tonight the wounds sleep. The blood has dried. And the fire is gentle. Sleep well, little caretaker of ruin and resilience. The days that follow the games are always strange. Everything moves slower, like the air itself has grown heavier, thick with ash and echoes. The ludus isn't silent, but it speaks softer now, as if mourning something that can't be named. Wake up earlier than needed. No one calls for you. But your body doesn't trust rest anymore. You wander the halls. Outside, the arena looms. Empty now. Quiet. The sand is being swept and raked by a separate team. Ones who come after. When the crowd has gone and the glories dried to dust, did you first task today? Inventory. Not weapons. Not armor. Men. You go bed to bed in the infirmary. Noting who's healed, who's limping, who's not waking up yet. You make a list. Tala reads it and gives a quiet grunt. Some names are circled. Some are crossed out. You try not to look at which one's next. The horses need brushing. No one says why. No one plans to ride. But maybe even the animals deserve a moment of comfort. You whisper to one as you comb out burrs from its mane. It snorts and stamps, then settles. Later, you're asked to assist with the oiling. Fighters don't train today, but their bodies must stay ready. Limber, strong, you help. Warm the oil, rub it into bruised shoulders, stiff arms, torn legs. The silence is sacred. A shared understanding. You oil Crixon's back. He doesn't speak, he just exhales, like he hasn't done it in days. You'll fight again soon. You say softly. He nods once. Or I won't, he replies. You both sit. With that. In the afternoon, Junius finds you. He's walking barely. He gestures to his side. Tell me it looks noble. You pull back the bandage. It looks like a goat kicked you and left a message. He laughs, then winces. Still better than anonymity, he says. You help him sit. You bring him wine. He toasts to the invisible hands that kept the world from falling. You roll your eyes. But you toast too. Even the medicus smiles. That evening, you're invited unexpectedly to a quiet meal in the fighters' dining hall. Not to serve. To sit. They pass bread, olives, a little honeyed wine. You don't speak much. You listen. Stories circle the table. Near misses. Odd dreams. The man who fought blind in one eye and still won. Then silence. Shared silence. You realize you're not just the servant anymore. You're a witness. A keeper of memory. After the meal, you return to the storage room to clean up. You polish one last helmet. The dents still show, but it shines. You place it on the shelf gently, like tucking in an old friend. Outside, the sky is velvet. Stars above Rome blink gently, as if even they are tired from watching. You find your bed, your real bed this time, not the floor or the bench or the hallway. Your hands are sore, your back stiff, but your heart, it's whole. You lie down. The room is warm. The wind soft. And for the first time in days, you allow yourself to sleep without one foot ready to run. You've survived. You've mattered. And that's enough. The fire outside crackles. Lo, the arena rests. The gladiators sleep. And so do you. Ancient memories closed. Tonight is yours. Good night.